You're tuned in to the Daily BS.
Do you believe it?
Sports and culture combined into one.
Michael on the drive across the lane. Turnaround shot. Got it. 63 for Jordan. Are you kidding me? He did what?
The Daily BS begins.
Bazinga.
Right now.
Great googly moogly.
Hadouken!
Hey, this promises to be fun.
Can't wait.
Well, hi there. Brian Snow with you here on this edition of the Daily BS, and we got lots to do, so sit back, relax, and strap it down, and let's get started. There is something wrong and rotten at Michigan State University. I was flipping through the news yesterday, and a note came across my Messenger and my Facebook while I was in my laboratory lining up some interviews that Mark Dantonio has retired as the head football coach at Michigan State University. And a friend of mine sent this to me. I said, what? Wait a minute. Mark Dantonio did what? Well, I went back into the lab and started researching. And I find this article courtesy of CBSSports.com. I beg your pardon. And it reads as follows. Michigan State coach Mark Dantonio has stepped down from his position as the longtime coach of the Spartans program. Dantonio made the surprising announcement on Tuesday afternoon, less than 24 hours before National Signing Day takes over the college football world, and just 2 weeks after receiving a longevity bonus from the university. Defensive coordinator and linebackers coach Mike Tressel will serve as the team's interim coach. I read that, and one of my favorite radio shows that I love to listen to is The Valenti Show out of Detroit. Mike Valenti is a longtime radio host. He was part of Valenti and Foster before Terry Foster retired. And he has been doing a fabulous job as the host of that show, and he's a graduate of Michigan State University. A little side note, one of the things I love about Valenti is when he gets mad, his New York accent comes out, because he's originally from New York. I digress. I listened to him, and I started reading. I haven't had a chance to keep up with college football, since professional football took over and all this other stuff. And like I said earlier in the program with the move and everything. But then I started doing some digging. And I kept this article up. I started doing some digging. And a lawsuit came to my attention. Dantonio is the subject of a lawsuit filed against Michigan State University by former staffer Curtis Blackwell. Curtis Blackwell is seeking more than $5 million in damages for wrongful termination. In the complaint, Blackwell alleges that Dantonio, who has spent the last 13 years at Michigan State, committed multiple NCAA recruiting violations. Among those allegations are that Dantonio orchestrated employment for the parents of 2 Michigan State football players with the school's mega donor, Bob, Scandalaris. Additionally, the suit claims that Blackwell accompanied Dantonio on an in-home visit for a 5-star recruit when Blackwell wasn't authorized to conduct an off-campus visit. Dantonio is serving as a witness in the case and refuted those allegations in a January 10th deposition. Lawyers for Dantonio have called the allegations not only false, but totally gratuitous. As I continue to read from CBSSports.com, Dantonio was asked if the lawsuit played a part in his decision during a press conference on Tuesday night. Dantonio's answer, quote, zero. No relevance whatsoever, close quote. Now I'm going to read to you his letter that he tweeted Tuesday afternoon. Reads as follows. There have been so many amazing life moments in the last 13 years. When I reflect, I think of our Big Ten championship games, our Big Ten championships, the big games, the playoffs, the bowl wins, the moments, the milestones, the graduates, the NFL opportunities, and finally, perhaps most importantly, the relationships made. This job has been a 24/7, 365-day-a-year position. There is no downtime, and it is filled with the demands and challenges of managing games, players, coaches, recruits, donors, staff, media, and enthusiastic fan base and competition at the very highest level. I will miss it all, but I feel the sacrifices that I've made away from my family now must become my priority at this time in my life. My plan is to stay on within the university and athletic department in a role involving special projects, especially transitioning our players, both current and incoming, to their next challenges. Something is foul. Dantonio just recently received a longevity bonus of $4.3 million from the university on January 16th, which came following the conclusion of his 13th season in East Lansing, Michigan. Just mention all the bowl appearances, 3 Big Ten championships, a college football playoff appearance, and a school-best 114 wins. They went in 8-5 against rival Michigan, including a stretch of 7 wins over 8 games from 2008 to 2015. You know what? When I listened to Mike Valenti yesterday, and I really sat down and started thinking about it, a couple of thoughts have come to mind, and I did some more research on the lawsuit where Dantonio is serving as a witness. I have come to the conclusion, and I can be totally wrong, I have come to the conclusion that Dantonio did something messed up. Very, very messed up. And I love the analogy that Valenti put forth in his program yesterday. He broke the story when the news came down. I got this later. But I love the analogy that Mike Valenti put together, and this is the analogy I'm going to use, courtesy of that show, and this is what I'm thinking. Behind door number 1, there's a family issue. And he mentioned his family in his press. He mentioned his family in that letter that he read on Twitter. Okay? Behind door number 2, something really ran afoul under his watch, and he's been caught. And behind door number 3, he just quit. Which door do you all choose? I don't even have to say choose wisely. You know, and Valenti put a very good question out there. Where's door number 4 when you win the new car? There isn't a door number 4. Play it out. Behind door number 1, something wrong with his family or himself, health and family. Behind door number 2, the allegations are true. Behind door number 3, he just quit. He just said, in Valenti's words, F this, I quit. Something has run afoul at Michigan State University. something has run really, really afoul in that football program. With this lawsuit coming down from Curtis Blackwell, who said and alleged, let me allege, I'll use that word, allege, and I'll read it again. In the complaint, Blackwell alleged that Dantonio, who has spent the last 13 years at Michigan State, committed multiple NCAA recruiting violations. There's your answer. I really don't know which door it is, but if it's the last two, then again, I'll borrow from Valenti, and I'm putting my own thoughts. I was putting my own thoughts together. This is a panic move. This is a move where he is trying to cover his own ass and not look as guilty or guiltless in the deposition that was given, or in the charges that I believe are forthcoming. I am inclined to believe, because of this, I would love to be wrong and have it be something with his health and family. But you resign a month after receiving $4.3 million. You resign 24 hours before National Signing Day. Yeah, the press conference was held later, but why did you take to Twitter to make this announcement? Why did you not do it the normal way and schedule a press conference? And again, the press conference came later, but you're going to take to Twitter to do this? I understand Valenti's frustration. Yeah, I'm a Northwestern fan, but I'm also a fan of good college football programs. You know, I didn't think much of Dantonio, to be honest, and I don't mean that in a bad way. He kept Michigan State competitive for many years. But now you begin to ask yourself, at the sacrifice of what? At what cost did you keep Michigan State competitive? At what cost did you keep that football program relevant? And it's very interesting, and again I echo Valenti's thoughts as they have now become my own, at least for this. It's very interesting that he resigns abruptly after receiving $4.3 million as that longevity bonus kicked in. You would tend to think after that bonus kicked in, it would be business as usual. Go on the recruiting trail, follow the rules, bring in some recruits, try to bounce back from a 7-6 year. The handwriting was on the wall for Dantonio a long time ago. A long time ago. Two of the losses that he suffered in his tenure in recent times, recent bias admitted, came at the hands of my Northwestern Wildcats. One in East Lansing, one here, one in Evanston. Here, I still think I'm in Chicago. I'm sorry. There is something stupid going on with the Michigan State football program. And I am very inclined to think that Mike Dantonio and those allegations of recruiting violations are going to become truth. And he said, the hell with y'all, I'm getting out of here before the walls come tumbling down. Part of the wall already came tumbling down. The rest of it, I believe, is going to come tumbling down very soon. And this season is going to be the penalty that is paid by the Michigan State football program for Mike Dantonio's past transgressions and anyone's after this that will be named. That's Snowman's take. What's yours? Now that I got that off my chest, let me pause for a break. I'll come back with more after this. Now, I want to welcome a fellow who started a network that did more than pique my interest. It really did. because women are involved, and women's sports deserves a lot more coverage than what they are getting now and what they have been getting. Let me welcome Henry G. of the Global Women's Sports Radio Network. I think I got that wrong. I know he'll correct me. Henry, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, Global Women's Sports Radio, that's how we're doing it. Now part of the Belly Up Sports family as well. So doing big things, staying busy over here.
That's a great thing. Tell me what got this network started for you.
Well, you know, I've worked in sports, worked at athletic departments at the university level. And, you know, going to a lot of the women's events, you see, you know, not really a crowd there, you know, and these are highly skilled females, you know, they're real athletes, highly skilled. So, you know, I just became a fan of it, especially like mid-major level. I mean, you get some really talented athletes and, you know, they don't usually have the one or two big stars. So it's more of an even playing field. So usually the team that goes out there and hustles and, you know, he wins the turnover battle, makes smart decisions is the team who wins the game. So, you know, it's fun to watch.
What got me hooked into women's sports was basketball. And my parents got me into basketball a long time ago. And my first ever favorite women's basketball player was a player by the name of Cheryl Miller. She was at USC at the time. And I got hooked on the women's Final Four that year. It was 1982. They held it at the Scope in Norfolk, Virginia. And, of course, now it's bigger and better. But there's still more that needs to be done for women's sports, my friend.
Absolutely. Women's sports only get the 4% of media coverage that the men's sports get. So, I mean, that's kind of the chicken and the egg is people say, well, nobody cares about women's sports, but, you know, maybe the reason they don't care about them is because they don't see them on Sports Center highlights, you know, on you know, their local sports network. So, you know, I think something's definitely got to be done about that. And, you know, they definitely deserve as much media coverage as the men's side does.
If not more. Then let me ask this question. I've had this question posed to me, and I have not been able to come up with an answer. You would think the interest would be there, but what can make women's college sports, and I want to concentrate on that for a couple of moments, what can make women's college sports more of a money draw or the same money draw as men's college sports? What can get that done?
Really, realistically, I think it takes people investing and believing in the product. I mean, women's sports, women's basketball, you know, the players aren't as athletic. It's more of a strategic game. You come to understand and enjoy the nuances. You know, a girl hitting 3 threes in a row, you know, setting the pick and rolls. I mean, you know, kind of some of that stuff. But in terms of growing women's sports, I mean, maybe the week where after bowl or after conference championship games in the NCAA, maybe you have a couple of big marquee, you know, women's basketball matchups that week when, you know, there's not as heavy of coverage on the college football. You know, maybe a UConn-Oregon matchup that week, you know, something like that, Notre Dame and Baylor, you know what I mean? And you televise those, and I think from there, you know, it's visible then. People are seeing it, and, I mean, hopefully, you know, people enjoy it.
For the longest time, CBS had the women's national championship game. I'm talking about women's college basketball here, and I'm also talking with Henry G. CBS had the women's college national basketball championship for the longest time. I remember watching it every year, I want to say up until 1995, and then the structure and the coverage began to change a little bit. If anybody remembers 1995, that was Rebecca Lobo's year with Connecticut, where they ran the table and went undefeated, and they won, let me get this right, at the Target Center in Minneapolis. That's where they claimed their championship. I think after that it began to change a little bit. Some points for the better, some points not.
Right, and I think when you look at it, you know, it's come so far since then. I mean, back then UConn was basically the dominant team, blowing everyone out. I mean, now you got Oregon, Stanford's been doing their thing, but Notre Dame as well, Mississippi State, you know, Arizona State. I mean, you got a lot of solid programs in athletic females, so it's more exciting than ever right now.
Do you think it's good that the women's college basketball tournament plays the days opposite of the men to try to get some fans to watch them?
I don't think so. I think they should do it the week before. Yeah, preferably the week before, you know, to, I think, grow it organically that way. But I think, you know, Vegas as well, I mean, the fan base isn't there. A lot of people aren't necessarily going for, you know, the women's college basketball tournament. So, I mean, I think they have to have maybe, you know, have it at one of these teams, you know, their gym. Like they used to do the WAC tournament, the men's side used to be at New Mexico State. Right. You know what I mean? So that way you have a big crowd there. Yeah. And there are people to watch the games.
Would it help more to have it for the women's tournament? I know they do this in the early rounds. Would it help more to have the tournament in its entirety on like the winner's campus or something? With that, do you think it would grow that way?
I think so, and it's big this year that the whole tournament is going to be televised as well. So we'll see what that does, but I think that's going to, you know, get a lot of viewership for them and hopefully, you know, grow it as well.
Henry G. joining me of the Global Women's Sports Radio Network and a part of Belly Up Sports, talking all things women's athletics. So let's move to the WNBA. I've covered the WNBA for many years. I hadn't covered it in the last couple because of a personal transition that I was going through, but I'm going to hop back on the train this year. They just celebrated their 25th anniversary, and yet we still see the same problems face them, you know, that faced them in year one. How does that change?
Well, I'll be honest. I think when it comes down to it, a lot of the individual athletes drop the ball. You know, I'm an autograph hound. I love going to games, staying late, going early, getting autographs. And a lot of these players in the WNBA don't want to sign things that may have value later on because they're afraid of people potentially putting them on eBay and selling them. I mean, that's part of the game. You know what I mean? When you're making money, I mean, you can't worry about somebody maybe making $100 off your autographed ball. So, I mean, that's what I think it is. They have to do a better job of connecting with the community, being willing to sign autographs on whatever it is a person has. And, you know, yeah, because that's the other thing. You know, I go for autographs and they tell me, oh, you got to go to the team shop and buy the autograph. Like, you can't actually really
get a player to
get
autograph.
An individual to, yeah, right. So it takes out that personal connection aspect with the players.
Yeah, it does. Because when I covered the Chicago Sky, and I covered them for their first 3 years, especially the year 2014, they drafted Elena Deladon out of Delaware. And I went to every home game, covered every home game that year, and that's when that transition started where you couldn't go seek autographs or you couldn't get autographs. It was after that season where it started and the WNBA started to, you know, put a halt to that. And as you said, take the connection away from the community. That's one of the biggest connections that needs to be reestablished.
Right. Look, I'm an autograph hound. I've gone 4 years to try to get Taurasi's autograph, try to get Griner's autograph. I mean, and basically you're being told, hey, go to the team shop. So it's kind of discouraging to the point like, man, I don't even really want to come to these games. You know what I mean? If they're not going to take the time to take a picture with me and sign an autograph, I mean, you know, kind of what's really going on here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes, even with the media gets turned away. You know this, I know this. Anyone who's covered women's sports knows this. Sometimes even the media gets away.
Exactly, you know. And I wanted to also bring up, you know, when you look at the NBA, a huge topic right now is load management.
Right.
When you look at the WNBA, you know, they play their WNBA season, and then they go to make their money.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really playing year-round, you know. So, you know, I'm glad that, you know, they're able to get more money now. We'll see how that new CBA works, but, you know, it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, you know, and that was the one thing that worried me, that one of the other connections, you know, that could bring fans out to the game. You know, the women are not being paid as much as the men are being paid. I beg your pardon. But one of the reasons, I think, is that women play more fundamental basketball. And to the casual basketball fan, listen to me carefully, folks, to the casual basketball fan, they don't want to see fundamentals. They want to see the highlights, the slams, the winning three-pointers. Well, you know something? I was a part, like I said, I covered the Chicago Sky in 2014 when they got to the WNBA Finals, and they had just as many winning three-pointers as a regular NBA team had.
Right. So here's a question that I would pose to you: is when you look at baseball, right? Obviously, men play baseball, women play softball, a game that's more tailored to their specific skill set. The fences are in, you know, it's more about running, manufacturing runs.
Right.
So when people bring up the debate of lowering the rims, people say, no, you can't do that. This is basketball. They feel like it has to be the same exactly as the men's game. So, you know, where do you begin to have conversations about, you know, tailoring the game to the women's skill set?
Well, you know something? A lot of that ceiling has already been broken. And you can thank, one, Lisa Leslie, and two, Candace Parker. And I bring those two names up because they've actually dunked on a 10-foot rim in game. So part of that ceiling has already been broken. But I do understand your question. It's a conversation that should have already been had about tailoring the women's game, you know, to fit their skill set. Part of the things that they have done, let's look at college and the WNBA. They play quarters instead of halves. They have a shot clock. They tailor the shot clock to how the women, you know, run their game and how they run the pick and roll and all that. In fact, I think the WNBA plays with a 24-second shot clock, if I'm not mistaken. So part of that has already been had. What are some other points that they can do to make it better and make it more attractive to bring the fans back to the game?
Well, no, and I agree, you know, that, you know, you have players like Candace Parker and Lisa Leslie, Brittany Griner, who could dunk.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, overall, I think it's got to be the marketing aspect. I mean, you know, you look at the NBA, you never really see PSAs or NBA players, you know, promoting the WNBA game. Of course, Kobe was doing that with his daughter, but I mean, you don't really see the promotion, and that was supposed to be part of the partnership when the WNBA was originally conceived, was that the NBA was going to use its resources to market it and it help grow the women's side as well. And I don't really see that happening from the NBA, excuse me.
Yeah, I don't see that either. Until that conversation happens, there's always going to be a divide and there's always going to be a gap between the two leagues and, quite honestly, between the two sports. That's Henry G., the man in charge of the Global Women's Sports Radio Network, talking women's sports with me. I plan to have him on another couple of times, so we can, you know, really put this conversation out there, because these are conversations that need to be had. I thank you very much, my friend, for the time. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me, Henry G, on Twitter, Henry GEE. You can also find me on Facebook as well, Henry G, also Global Women's Sports Radio, Blindside Sports. I'm doing it all.
Yeah, the man's doing it all. The man stays busy. I appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
We'll continue with more after the break. Welcome back to this edition of the program, and there's a gentleman who I kind of mercilessly picked on because he's a Packers fan for some god-awful reason. Nah, but he is a brother, and I love him, and it's about time I got him back on the program. One of the hosts of the fabulous show, the Wise Guys. This guy does know his sports. I will give him that, and I will give him that freely. This is Tre Larkins, and he joins me right now. How are you, my friend?
Pretty good, Brian. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. You know I had to pick on you before we got started, right?
Yeah. I know you did, man.
Yeah. This is man, for those of you who don't know, I've had Tre on the show before, a very, very dear friend. He and I love talking sports, and let's dive right into it. I've been wanting to have you on for a while. Give me your thoughts on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They won it. They won the Super Bowl, first time in 50 years. Give me your thoughts, man.
Yeah, it was a very impressive performance by the Chiefs, especially in the fourth quarter. You know, this was the third time this postseason, Brian, where they trailed. In this game, they trailed at one point. They were down 20-10 to the Niners, so they came back from a 10-point deficit. You remember in the AFC Championship game, they trailed the Titans, and they were down by 10. And then against the Texans, obviously, they were down by 24 in the first half of that game. So the Kansas City Chiefs, I call them the comeback Chiefs because they have shown tremendous resilience this year. And when the pressure has been on them, they've always rolled and elevated their game. And in this matchup, it was no different than the first three games of the postseason for them. And they made plays when they had to get back in that game against the Niners.
What got them to this point, and I said this earlier in the week, is not just this postseason, 3 games of coming back from 10 points down. What got them to this point was losing in the AFC Championship last year at Arrowhead Stadium to the New England Patriots, a comeback they could not make.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely was, because when you look at the matchup against the Texans, you know, they were down 24 in the first half, and I'm, texting my cousins who's into football and my buddies, and I'm like, man, what's going on with the Chiefs, because they end up getting into the playoffs, and in week 17, I don't know if you remember, the Patriots were in the driver's seat, Brian, to get the number 2 seed in the AFC. But the Patriots, they lost to the Dolphins at Gillette in week 17, so that opened the door for the Chiefs and Pat Mahomes to capture the number 2 seed in the AFC. So they had that week off. Maybe that was the reason why they were so, off balance in that first half against the Texans. But, in that game against the Texans, they roared back. They were down 24. They roared back, won 51-31. Then in the AFC Championship game, they trailed by 10. In the first half against the Titans, roared back 35-24. And then in the Super Bowl, when it really mattered the most, because at that point in the game, in the first 3 quarters, the Niners were the better team. They were outplaying the Chiefs by far. But when it was time to make a play and when the money was on the line, the Kansas City Chiefs got it done in the biggest moments in that game.
21 points in 6 minutes, and the Chiefs celebrate the World Championship, their first in 50 years, as I said. I'll say it, and I said it throughout the course of the week. Yes, the Chiefs won. They made the plays when they had to. But you can't sleep on San Francisco from here on out also. They really overachieved this year, and I believe it's going to carry them into next year and beyond.
Yeah, it definitely will. But I got to be honest, though, Brian, I got to go a different route, because I kind of feel like in this matchup, the Niners, I'm looking at Kyle Shanahan. I really feel like Kyle Shanahan, he blew this Super Bowl for the San Francisco 49ers. You remember the last Super Bowl that we seen Kyle Shanahan in, he blew that Super Bowl when he was the coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. And in the fourth quarter, in the last 10 minutes of the last 2 Super Bowls that Kyle Shanahan has been a part of, he's been outscored by 46 points. He's now scored 46-0. He hasn't even scored a single point in the last 10 minutes of the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. And so in this matchup, for some reason, he got away from the running game. And in the final 10 minutes, he had 12 passing plays compared to 2 rushing plays. And that's a recipe for disaster for the 49ers, considering Jimmy Garoppolo is a mediocre quarterback at best. You got to do what brought you there and what got you to the big dance. And I felt like Kyle Shanahan got away from that.
He really did. He did not call enough running plays in the ball game, in my opinion. And I said this earlier in the week as well. He got away from what brought him to the dance, which was the running game. And let's take a look at this. Let's look ahead now. What could be the ceiling, if there is one, for Kansas City?
When it comes to Kansas City, I think Kansas City, man, this is a dynasty in the making. When you look at Pat Mahomes in this matchup, after his second interception in the Super Bowl, Brian, he went 8 of 13. He passed for 114 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, with a passer rating of 129.
Mm-hmm.
So when his money was on the line, Pat Mahomes made plays, and he's only 24 years of age.
Yeah.
And you know he's about to get a big contract. We got to see what's going to happen when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs and their, as far as who they're going to bring back, because Pat Mahomes will get a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pat Mahomes is the kind of player that wouldn't mind taking a pay cut to keep some of those pieces on that team so they can contend for years to come.
A couple of players, Sammy Watkins said the same thing. Tyreek Hill said the same thing. They want to remain Chiefs and retire Chiefs. And, after winning the Super Bowl in comeback fashion, you cannot blame them. So I agree with you. This is a dynasty in the making. And if I were fans of the Patriots or in my case with my family, the Colts, you got to look at this team. This team is nothing to sleep on right now.
Oh, yeah, definitely, man. And like I said, I really feel like they are going to be, representing the AFC in the Super Bowl, over the course of Patrick Mahomes' career at least 3 or 4 more times, depending on the health of Andy Reid, because Andy Reid, we can't forget about Andy Reid in this Super Bowl. Right. Andy Reid is 6th all time amongst coaches in wins, and Andy Reid has had a hell of a career. And I'm going to be honest, Brian, even though I picked the 49ers to win the Super Bowl, I couldn't be more happier for Andy Reid because I really feel like Andy Reid deserved this Super Bowl. Yes. And you heard the players speak about that after the game, and they were so happy for their head coach. So I'm really happy for Andy Reid.
I'm happy for Andy Reid as well, and I'm happy for Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. And I said my official pick was the 49ers, but I cannot complain because A, it was a hell of a Super Bowl. B, the Chiefs played their hearts out. Both teams played their hearts out. And C, when the money was on the line, you just had that feeling that Patrick Mahomes was going to do Patrick Mahomes things. So I, too, am happy for the Kansas City Chiefs in winning the Super Bowl. Let's turn our attention to the NBA. And there was a statement that you made online that not only got my attention, but also got me to smile. With everybody basically now appointing the Milwaukee Bucks the Eastern Conference champions, old Tre Larkins said, not so fast. Why do you say that, my friend?
I'm not sold on Milwaukee Bucks, Brian. I really feel like last year in the Eastern Conference Finals, that meltdown that took place against Kawhi Leonard and the eventual championship Toronto Raptors left a bad taste in my mouth. I really feel like the Bucks, I don't really believe that they can win a championship. And I have other teams that are in the Eastern Conference that I believe that can compete with the Bucks in a 7-game series. I believe in the Greek Freak. I'm going to make that clear. I believe in the reigning NBA MVP. Mm-hmm. I just really, really got a lot of questions about the other parts of their team. And I really wonder when you get into a 7-game series in the playoffs, when you preparing for teams and your matchups, I'm just wondering if those other parts on that Bucks team are going to step up in those moments when they need buckets. Like I said, I believe in the Greek Freak, but I'm not so sure about their other parts. And I think teams like the Boston Celtics, and even the Miami Heat can really, really compete with them in a playoff moment. So we'll see what happens, but I think other teams compete with them for sure.
Miami, yes. Boston, yes. There's another team that keeps cropping up in conversation, which I say no to. You say no to Milwaukee. I say no to Philadelphia, and I'll give you 2 good reasons. Number 1, Joel Embiid cannot remain healthy. We've seen it throughout the course of his career. Number 2, Ben Simmons cannot make a jump shot. And if you can't make a jump shot when it's playoff time, you got trouble. We've seen it the last 2 years with Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I think Philadelphia, Elton Brand, the general manager for the Sixers, he has to make a decision, Brian. He has to make a decision on whether or not he's going to build his team around Ben Simmons or around Joel Embiid, because I don't really believe that Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons can coexist. I really don't. I think they struggle with chemistry on the floor. I believe Elton Brand has to make a decision at some point as to whether or not he's going to build his team around Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid. And I think obviously the remaining thought would be to go with Ben Simmons because he's more durable. Availability is the best ability. And I believe with Joel Embiid's injury history, you would think that the Sixers may lean towards building around Ben Simmons. But we'll see what happens. I just don't think those two coexist very well.
The problem I have with Ben Simmons, and I'll say it again, he can't make a jump shot and he can't make a free throw. In fact, if my numbers are correct, he's made less than a handful of 3-point field goals this season. And the NBA has gone to more of the 3-point shot more than anything else. How does Ben Simmons fit into not only his time with Philadelphia and a future with Philadelphia, but how can he fit into a jump shooting league?
I agree with you. That's where he has struggled. And he said coming into the season that he worked on his jump shot, in the off season, but he's just not taking jump shots. That's the issue. It's not that he's missing them. It's that he's not even attempting 3-point jump shots, Brian. And I looked at the stat sheet last night. I think against the Miami Heat, he shot like 1 3-point shot. And I'm like, and then he went 4 of 7 from the floor overall. He's not being aggressive. The Sixers need Ben Simmons to be aggressive in order to be successful. And if he's not being aggressive, then that really, really derails their team. So I agree with you. Him not making jump shots really, really is hurting their team. But I still think he may be a better option to build around than Joel Embiid simply because of health. I think Joel Embiid has a higher upside than Ben Simmons when healthy. But I have questions about the durability factor when it comes to Joel Embiid. I think Ben Simmons will be available and Joel Embiid won't be.
So what finally gets the Boston Celtics over the hump? They've been close a couple of times. They were within 12 minutes of getting to the World Championship Series in 2018. The collapse happened last year. What finally gets the Boston Celtics over the hump in the East?
The leadership from Kemba Walker. And I will be honest, coming into the season, Brian, I told many people that I felt like by them letting go of Kyrie Irving, I didn't really think that you were going to upgrade the team bringing in Kemba Walker. I was wrong, and I don't mind admitting it. I think Kemba Walker meshes better with this team, with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and, the players on this team. They mesh better with Kemba Walker than Kyrie. So I think I think Kemba Walker will be the difference for the Boston Celtics in the playoffs because Kemba Walker, like Kyrie, can get his own shot when he wants to, can create shots off the dribble. Obviously, he's a knockdown 3-point shooter when he gets an opportunity. And he can get to the free throw line. So I think Kemba Walker will be the difference for the Celtics. And him and Jason Tatum in that pick and roll will be tough to guard for other teams in the Eastern Conference.
Can the Toronto Raptors make a run to have a chance to defend their championship?
No, I don't see it happening, Brian. With all due respect to the Toronto Raptors and them winning the championship last season, I was so happy for the city of Toronto, Drake, and Masai Ujiri and Kawhi Leonard getting it done, Kyle Lowry. I was happy for those brothers last year winning the championship, but it won't happen this year. There's just too much talent for other teams and too much firepower in the Western Conference for me to see the Toronto Raptors even get into the finals. I don't even think they'll win in the East. I think they may win a first-round series, but I think Milwaukee's better. I think Boston's better. I think Miami's obviously better. Maybe if they get Philly in the first round and Philly is discombobulated, maybe they can get Philly, but other than that, I don't really see the Raptors making any deep playoff run come April.
Let's stay in the East, and who gets that number 8 seed? There's a big there's a hell of a competition going on right now. Detroit, Chicago, Brooklyn is currently holding that spot. Chicago's 2 games out. Who expected the Bulls to be at this point toward the All-Star break? Nothing but failure for the Bulls the last couple of years, and they're sitting right there, a couple of more pieces, and they can make a run. Can the Bulls get that 8th spot?
It's possible. It's possible because I'm looking at the other teams right now that's in the race for 8th because the Sixers have a substantial lead at the 6th spot. But you look at the Nets right now, they have 22 and 27, the Magic 22 and 28. None of these teams have really separated themselves that you can really say that's a lock to make the playoffs. So the Bulls definitely have an opportunity to slide into the playoff picture and, get a first-round matchup. They'll go home early, but just for them getting to the playoffs, that'll be a major accomplishment for that Bulls franchise that's rebuilding.
Yeah, and they've been rebuilding, for a couple of years. Last time they were in, of course, was 3 years ago, 2017. They lost to Boston in the first round after winning the first 2 games of that series, and finally to see some success for these young Bulls, and they're the youngest team in the league right now, in particular having drafting Cody White out of North Carolina, Zach LaVine, who I think his snub as an all-star is a travesty to me. This young Bulls team, they got some direction to fill out, but they're making some headway already.
They definitely are, and I like the way LaVine's been playing this year. He's been, playing very consistent basketball, putting the ball in the bucket for them. And like I said, I agree with you. I think the Bulls definitely have an up-and-coming team. You know, I know it's been a while since the Bulls have been competitive. You know, it's been a very while since Derrick Rose was in his prime.
Right.
They haven't really been competitive at all. So I agree with you. I think they keep up and coming. They keep making plays and making players better. And we'll see what happens in the future, but I really, really think they have a bright future ahead of them.
Taking a look at the Western Conference, you know, the Lakers are sitting on top right now. The Clippers are not far behind them. But I want to take a peek at the effect that Chris Paul has had on Oklahoma City and how they are playing right now. Do they have enough in the tank to get to April?
Yeah, I think they'll make the playoffs for sure, but I think they'll go home in the first round. If they get matched up against the Clippers or the Lakers, Brian, they'll go home in the first round. I think they had a great season because coming into the season, this was supposed to be a year where the Oklahoma City Thunder were in a, you know, kind of in a rebuild. You know, they weren't supposed to be competing for a playoff spot. They were supposed to be at the bottom of the Western Conference, but with the leadership of Chris Paul, they have really, really overachieved. I'll really say that they overachieved, and we'll see what happens with the rest of the season. But I think if they get into the playoffs, they'll probably go home in the first round. But again, the season that they had, it was an overachievement just for them to get into the playoffs. Because when they let go of Paul George and traded Russell Westbrook Houston, I said this was going to be a year where they'll be picking in the top 5 of the NBA draft. But that leadership of Chris Paul and, you know, Billy Donovan on the head coaching staff for the Oklahoma City Thunder has elevated them to be in the playoff hunt. And I think they've done very, very well this season.
6 through 10 in the West is a logjam right now. It goes Dallas, Oklahoma City, who we just touched on, Memphis, Portland, and San Antonio. San Antonio's playoff streak is on the line. They're sitting in the 10th spot right now, game and a half out of the 8th spot, which is currently held by Memphis. Between Memphis, Portland, and San Antonio, who gets that number 8 spot?
Portland Trailblazers. They'll get that number 8 spot. I don't see no way in hell that Damian Lillard lets the Portland Trailblazers miss the playoffs. I just don't see it happening, Brian. And he's been on a tear lately, playing great basketball, you know, averaging over 40 points per game. He's been playing great basketball. And I was watching the matchup against the Lakers on Friday night. You know, it was a very emotional game for everybody. Obviously, you know, dealing with the tragedy of Kobe or whatever. But in that matchup in Staples Center, it was Damian Lillard who had the Mamba mentality. So I like the way Damian Lillard was playing. So between those 3 teams, I would say the Portland Trailblazers are likely to make the playoffs because I just don't see Damian Lillard. You know, I don't see him letting them miss the playoffs. I just don't see it happen the way he's playing. I
don't see that either. I'll let you close with your thoughts on the tragic death of Kobe Bryant before we go to break.
Man, it was tough for me, Brian. I'm gonna be honest. At first, when the news initially came down, I didn't believe it. I really didn't believe it. It took maybe about 2 hours or 3 hours before I actually started really realizing, like, hey, this is real. And I was really devastated about it, to be honest, because I grew up in the Kobe Bryant, you know, era, and he was my Michael Jordan. And I really feel like sometimes when we talk about all-time NBA great, because Kobe was at the end of the Jordan era and in the middle of the LeBron era, people forget how great Kobe Bean Bryant was. We're talking about a 5-time NBA champion, 2-time Finals MVP, you know, 18-time All-Star. This is Kobe Bryant that we're talking about. And I believe that Kobe Bryant obviously is a top 5 NBA all-time player by far. And I still believe that he's a better player than LeBron. Now, it's debatable. You know, a lot of LeBron fans like to talk about LeBron and his all-around player and all that.
You just made me smile with that statement. You realize that, don't you?
Yeah.
Because I was in the because I had both eras. I had both Kobe and MJ. I had MJ from 82 to his retirement in 2003, had Kobe Bean from 96 to his retirement and unfortunately his untimely death. We're still in the middle of the LeBron era right now. We don't know when that's going to come to a close. So when you talk about 2 eras coinciding with each other, and of course you had the matchup that, you know, Kobe and MJ had in the All-Star game at Madison Square Garden in 1998, it was a passing of the torch at that time.
Yeah, it definitely was. And, you know, like I said, Kobe Bryant, the thing about Kobe, he came into the league having to prove himself. He was young coming to the league. He was only 17 years of age when he entered the NBA, Brian. So he had to prove himself. Then obviously he won the championships back to back with Shaquille O'Neal. But people had questions about Kobe because they said he wasn't the best player on those teams. Well, Shaq leaves, and then Kobe, you know, comes back and he has Pau Gasol on his team. He wins a championship with Pau Gasol. In those championships, he was by far the best player on those teams. Won Finals MVPs in both of those Finals appearances with the Lakers. But I just always felt like when people doubted the Black Mamba, he always made you pay. And he was an assassin. He was a true definition of an assassin.
Yes, he was.
And he's the closest thing we'll ever get to Michael Jordan. And it's just, I was devastated when I heard the news about him, passing away. To be honest, I haven't felt a death like that since, Prince and, Michael Jackson died. It was devastating to me, Brian. I'm going to be honest. It broke me down.
Yeah, it broke a lot of us down, myself included. That's Tre Larkins, one half of the Wise Guys. You can catch them every week. You can also catch a replay on Arena Sportsnet. My brother, it is a pleasure to have you on. Got to have you on a lot more, my friend.
Yes, for sure, man. And be sure to always follow Wise Guys. Our shows each and every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Everybody can watch us live on Facebook or Instagram. Follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_OH. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And, Brian, man, it's always a pleasure, man. We got to do this more often.
We will do this more often. One half of the Wise Guys. This guy does know his sports. Tre Larkins joining me. Thanks a lot, my friend.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
We got more for you in a flash. Little NBA chatter to go on right now, and, I've had some great people to talk some NBA, but here's one that I have every week. This is Chris Pirtle, and he joins me right now. Mr. Pirtle, how are you, my friend? Who is your MVP right now?
MVP of this, I'm going to have to give it to Giannis. I wanted to give it to Luka. I've been wanting to give it to Luka, but the reality is he's just missed too many games. Giannis has missed very few games. I can't really remember any games he's missed this year, so probably only just one or two. But his statistics, Brian, above last year's, 58% from the field. I mean, most guys, there's a lot of guys in the league right now that can't even shoot that from the free throw line. Giannis does that on a nightly basis from the field. Let's give it to Giannis so far.
Yeah, I'll have to agree. Giannis is on his way to, I believe, his second consecutive MVP, and the Milwaukee Bucks are firing out of the gate. Still the only single-digit loss team remaining in the league. What has gotten them stronger this year compared to last year?
Well, I think it's a combination of a couple of things. Giannis is continuing to develop in his game. When the Bucks got shot down last year by the Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals, Brian, and I covered a couple of those games, specifically Game 5 at Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, I was asked many times, what do the Bucks need to do? And I said, well, Giannis needs to continue to develop. He's not totally at his plateau yet. So we're seeing the development of Giannis continue. We're seeing Mike Budenholzer in his second year on the job in Milwaukee. We're seeing his system really not only just been implemented last year, but just being more familiar with by guys like Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe, Giannis, and, they kept most of those guys on the team from last year. They were able to bring back Brook Lopez, and not only did they bring him back, they even brought his brother in. So they've got some excellent chemistry and cohesion. They've been relatively injury-free, and that's why we see the Milwaukee Bucks at the top of the NBA standings at 42-7.
Looking at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, it's a dogfight for that number 8 seed. Brooklyn is holding that spot right now. The Bulls are 2 games behind them in the 9 spot. The Detroit Pistons are creeping up into the playoff picture. It's going to be a real dogfight, as it usually is for that number 8 seed. But I think this year, more than ever, we got more teams competing for that number 8.
Yeah, as you said, Chicago and Detroit are also players as far as that goes. Sometimes I wonder how Detroit is even a part of this, but if you look at the standings, they're only a few games out of that 8th spot, so if they get hot, they could definitely get it. But we've also got to remember Orlando. They lost 5 in a row up until last night when they went into Charlotte and got a much-needed victory. They had fallen actually below the Brooklyn Nets 1 or 2 nights, but as you know, Brian, the standings change every night, but you're right, going to be a great battle for both seeds 7 and 8.
The Toronto Raptors are getting overlooked, and yet they are the defending NBA world champions. Why do they still continue to be overlooked, even though they're near the top of the conference?
Yeah, if I had to pick a reason of why do I overlook these guys, Brian, I see them win just about. I think they've won 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 11, or it's just crazy what the amount of games that they've won, especially here recently. I mean, we know they started off the season as good as anybody, but they've just been on a tear recently that has them solidified in the number 2 seedings. I think the 3rd seed now is 2 games behind them. So I see a lot of competition that they're playing that I think is easy competition. I want to see what happens once the Raptors' schedule changes. I would imagine the second half of this year, their schedule will get more difficult, and we'll see if they can maintain. But, yeah, you're right, Brian. I'm not showing them enough respect. The media's not showing them enough respect. You're probably not showing them enough. And our question is why. And right now, I don't have a good reason.
I don't have a good reason either because, after Kawhi left, in my mind, I kind of wrote them off. Silly of me, 22 games over 500 coming into this week's competition, and they're the defending champions, and yet they're still getting overlooked. And I want to point out a team that, you said to me would get overlooked at the start of the season, and they are getting overlooked. That's the number 5 seed Indiana Pacers, 31 wins on the season. Who expected Indiana to come out like this, especially now as we steam toward the All-Star break?
Yeah, and as Oladipo gets assimilated into the lineup again and gets used to playing the game of basketball, which he hasn't done for about a year, or a little over a year, I think that team will get even hotter. So I like what's going on there. If they wouldn't have lost a ridiculous home game the other night to the New York Knicks, I think they would be ahead of Philadelphia in the standings. They'd be sitting at 4 right now. But you're right, Brian. It's an excellent story. That does not get talked about a lot. The media would rather focus on a team like the Miami Heat. Maybe it's because the Miami Heat have 3 championships in the last 15 seasons. Maybe because they've been to the finals 5 times in the last 15 or 16 years. Maybe it's because Miami is surrounded by beautiful sandy beaches, as where Indianapolis is surrounded by a bunch of cornfields. I don't know, but to me, I think the story in Indianapolis was a little more special the first half of the season, and it definitely got overlooked.
A story that I continue to echo, and I will keep saying this until I am proven differently. The 2 reasons the Philadelphia 76ers will not get to Memorial Day weekend, which is normally conference championship weekend, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Embiid because of his health, Ben Simmons because of a lack of a jump shot. Every night you see Philadelphia play, you get something different, and many nights that's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's really weird too, especially their home and away record, Brian. I think 18-2 at home, and then well below 500 on the road. They just cannot get the job done on the road. I think Brett Brown's going to get a serious look this offseason too, because when you're unable to play on the road like that, but you do have such a good home record, to me that indicates you've got the talent. And why is that not translating to road games? But you're right about Embiid and Simmons, probably not the greatest of mixes. I think sometimes I try to figure out, well, who's the problem? Is it Embiid or is it Simmons, or is it just a combination of both of those guys playing with each other? And is it time for them to go separate ways? Now, let's keep this in mind. They were the only team last year to take the Raptors to a Game 7 in the playoffs. And so they were just there in their minds. They brought in Al Horford. They're paying a truckload of money. I've never seen a team with 4 $100 million plus contracts in the history of the NBA until the 2020 version of the Philadelphia 76ers. But you're right, Brian. Trade deadline's coming up. They've got to find a way to get some chemistry or cohesion. Otherwise, some of those guys are going to be shipped out of there.
Let's look at the Western Conference. Of course, the Lakers lead the Western Conference right now. We'll touch on them in a second. Clippers, the number 2 spot. 3, 4, 5 go Denver, Utah, and Houston. There's your log jam right there. Any one of those 3 teams, Denver, Utah, and Houston, can overtake the top spot right now. Remember, last year at this time, Denver was the number 1 seed till they got overtaken by Golden State. Can any one of those 3, and I'll throw Dallas in this equation as well, Denver, Utah, Houston, or Dallas, can any one of those 4 take over one of the top 2 seeds in the Western Conference?
Well, I think those two Mountain Time teams are two very dangerous teams. They're teams that are getting players into their lineup, like right now in Denver, Michael Porter Jr. We're seeing his development. We're seeing some pretty nice flashes from him. Right now, Jamal Murray is not healthy, and they've been without Murray. But last week, Brian, I was very impressed with what Denver did this past weekend. They went to Utah, won on the road at Utah, and the very next night they have to go. Well, I'm pretty sure that game was in Utah. It might have been in Denver. But the very next night, they have to go to Milwaukee. I can't imagine back-to-back road games. That must have been in Denver where they beat Utah without Jamal Murray. And the very next night, they're in Milwaukee without Jamal Murray again, and they get the job done and win the game by double digits. So I think anything's possible when it comes to the Denver Nuggets and Utah Jazz, and I don't count either one of those teams out. As far as the two teams in Texas, I have my doubts about them. Mavericks, Luka's got to get healthy. He's got to stay healthy. Otherwise, they cannot be taken seriously. And just one game back in the standings from the Mavericks is the Oklahoma City Thunder. We know, and we know what a mad scientist, a genius, I should say, that Sam Presti is. We've seen him pull off impossible trades. Going to be interesting to see if Oklahoma City makes a deal at the deadline that could improve their team and make them a player in the Western Conference standings.
Looking inside the Western Conference, Chris Bertle talking NBA with me. All right, let's look at the top right now. Lakers and Clippers, battle of Los Angeles, battle for the number 1 seed, and I'll leave the Clippers alone. Well, before we get to them, I want to mention something you mentioned the last time that you were on this program with me. The one team that could get hot if their guard play stepped up is the Portland Trail Blazers. They go to Los Angeles. They win at the Lakers, putting up 127 points on LeBron and company, and then they win the next night. Damian Lillard drops 48 and then 51 respectively. If there was any time for the Trail Blazers to get hot, now's the time.
Yeah, you're right about that, and I think it's going to happen, Brian. They've got too good of a team and too good of a coach for them not to get hot. And what is wrong with us, Brian? We should probably be talking about Damian Lillard in the MVP conversation.
Absolutely.
And these aren't just 50-point games that come with 2 assists and 3 rebounds. He's filling out that stat sheet quite nicely. It's very impressive what Lillard's doing. And I think he's definitely thrust himself into the MVP conversation.
And I'll touch on a point to close up shop that we spoke on and have spoken on all season long, and that's the point of the Los Angeles Lakers. When they play lesser teams that have less of a bench and can't match their talent, they feast. However, if they play teams that have just about the same amount of bench power and the same amount of upfront starting talent power, they famine. And the Portland Trail Blazers, and I want to draw on the Portland Trail Blazers again, the Portland Trail Blazers proved it Friday night.
I agree. Lakers were 9-point favorites that night, and everybody thought the Lakers would blow the Blazers out of the building, including myself. And that's not what's happening. As a matter of fact, the Lakers are now 4-4 in their last 8 games. Brian, we've been issuing warnings ever since Thanksgiving about this team.
That we have.
We said, hey, watch it. And now the Clippers, 3.5 games behind them in the standings. The Clippers are 16-4 when Kawhi and Paul George are in the lineup together. Watch out. It's going to be tough for the Lakers this second half because their schedule is going to go from being an easy schedule in the first half of the season to being a tough schedule in the second half of the season. They've remained healthy. Could you imagine an injury to that team on top of a tough schedule? It could be a tough second half of the season for the Lakers, but they've got a lot of talent, though, so we'll see if they can respond.
Chris Bertle joining me to talk all things NBA. Catch him on this show every single week to break down the ins, the outs, and the happenings, especially with the trade deadline coming up here soon, as well as the All-Star game. Man, it's going to be a fun conversation each and every week. Chris Bertle joining me, as always, each week. Thank you very much, my friend. Appreciate the time. We got some more to talk about in a flash. So I have to be nice to a Chiefs fan and actually tell him congratulations. No, I'm kidding as I say that. The Chiefs did a wonderful job in winning the Super Bowl, and one of my favorite guys, he hosted the Cheap Seats with Steve and Steve. He now has the WD60 Sports Talk Show, and like I said, this is one of my favorite guys to talk sports with. This is Steve Willis, and he joins me right now. How are you, my friend, and congratulations.
Hey, Brian. Glad to be here. Hey, still kind of shell-shocked. Still kind of letting it sink in a little bit. But, hey, the Chiefs are world champions. I have not been able to say that in my lifetime. So that is huge for me because I am almost 44 years old. So last time they did this, I was -6. So this is huge.
Well, the Chiefs did do it. Patrick Mahomes wins the most valuable player. Well-deserved. You got to take off your hat for both teams because this has been the best Super Bowl we've seen in a while.
Absolutely. By far, the most evenly matched going into this game. You had on one side Jimmy Garoppolo, who's no slouch as far as throwing the ball. Patrick Mahomes, obviously last year's MVP and arguably the best back in the league right now. A rushing game with Mostert, Samuel, Coleman on one side, Damian Williams on the other, and then wide receivers all over the place. Obviously, the Chiefs have the faster wide receivers, but my gosh, still with Samuel, Juszczyk, Emmanuel Sanders, and obviously George Kittle. We can't forget about him.
No,
it was very evenly matched, and the defense, of course. The Chiefs' defense has been great as of late, and a lot of people wondered exactly what they were going to do against a running scheme that really moves around a lot and forces you to play really good assignment football. And apparently, Kansas City's defense answered the call. I mean, you had guys like Frank Clark and Stone Cold Jones. Of course, Terrell Suggs got in there a little bit. They were able to hold the San Francisco run game to right about the 100-yard mark, and that really is that's saying something, considering what San Francisco was able to do to the Minnesota Vikings and, of course, the Green Bay Packers. So that really said a lot as far as what defense wanted to do, and you can see KC came in literally selling out to stop the run. And they came in with an attitude of, we are going to force Jimmy Garoppolo to beat you. Now, that said, Jimmy Garoppolo did an excellent job for 3 quarters. The offense did a fantastic job of finding ways to move the ball for 3 quarters on the field, at least keep it out of Kansas City's hands for 3 quarters. And that played well. And then all of a sudden, the quarter came along and things changed.
Yes.
And I can tell you the moment everything changed in this game, there were two actually. It was right after the 49ers scored their touchdown in the quarter, and they panned the camera to Tyrann Mathieu, and you could see him marching the sideline, just absolutely eviscerating everybody in his path. That moment, I think, is what changed the defense. Because if you notice, after they came out, they did not allow another score after that. And not only that, they forced 2 3-and-outs. So that, I think,
and until the fourth
and they
quarter,
also forced a turnover.
Yeah, and until the fourth quarter, they hadn't forced a 3-and-out the entire game. In fact, Mitch Wishnowsky, the 49ers punter, hadn't punted until the fourth quarter.
Exactly. And so I think that was the turning point for the defense.
Indeed,
the turning point for the Kansas City offense was the Tyreek Hill 44-yard catch. That was in the fourth quarter, 9 minutes ago. Patrick Mahomes needed a little Patrick Mahomes magic, and he got it with that deep pass to Tyreek Hill. And that, I think, rolling at that point, it was almost like watching a fighter that's been struggling through 12 rounds all of a sudden get that one maker that he's been trying to get all fight.
Yep.
And he finally got the champ with that maker, and you saw the champ just kind of take a half a step back and reel a little bit and go, whoa, wait a second. That was for real.
Yes.
And
yes.
that I think was the moment that the Chiefs said, hey, we could do this. I think this is, I mean, I feel like they had confidence the entire time, but I feel like that was that moment when they said, look, defense, there is a crack in the seam right there, and we're going to focus on pushing the offense from there. Now, notably, the 49ers controlled 3/4 of this game. The only problem is they couldn't control that final quarter, and they allowed the Chiefs to get back in. And then from there, the Chiefs' offense just took over.
And you know what? It was a fantastic game. The Chiefs took over in that fourth quarter, the final 6 minutes. But I give the Chiefs a lot of kudos for this. 3 playoff games, including the Super Bowl, 3 minus 10-point deficits, 3 comeback wins. That's the magic of Mahomes. That's the defense coming together. That's the entire team. And you mentioned the biggest play of the game, that 44-yard completion, which came on a 3rd and 15 from Mahomes to Tyreek Hill. It set up their first of 3 touchdowns within 6 minutes. And you know the scary part about this Kansas City team? It's the same scary part about the 49ers team. These teams are young. This could be the first of multiple times these two will meet in the Super Bowl. In fact, I had a couple friends say to me after the game, you know, Kansas City got this one, the 49ers make it the next one in Tampa. And you know something, Stevie? I wouldn't be surprised if these two hook up again multiple times within the next 5 years.
Yeah, I would not in the least. And there were a few things that I think, if you know, obviously you can break a game down anyway. There are a few things that I think the 49ers could have done to salt this thing away a lot earlier, just didn't.
Yeah.
And obviously the one thing that I'm going to see is being down is that last minute and 45 in the first half. When Francisco chose. Yeah, when they chose not to burn any of their timeouts and run the clock down. After the game, Kyle Shanahan was in an interview, and he explained that by saying, look, the Chiefs had 3 timeouts as well. The last thing we wanted to do is give them the ball back with Patrick Mahomes and that offense. And that, to me, sounds exactly like we were playing not to lose.
Yeah.
Well, I got news for you. If you're playing not to lose, you're going to get beat, especially when the stakes are this. Now, you did say something about the Chiefs and their resilience, the down 10-plus points 3 different times this playoffs. I do want to, first of all, that's the first time that's ever happened in the history of the league. No team has ever been able to do that.
Yep.
So there is a brand new thing. Secondly, going back to the before the AFC Championship game, I actually put on Twitter, after watching the game against the Houston Texans, I said the Kansas Chiefs, I believe, now have the one thing that every Super Bowl-worthy team needs, and that is composure.
Yes.
And that is the one thing that you saw in all 3 of these games. They got down by 24 points against Houston, retained their composure. They got down 10 points early to the Titans. They retained their composure. They were in a battle back and forth with the 49ers. And at halftime, with both teams playing, you know, pretty conservative, we get into the quarter and the 49ers just dominate the Chiefs defensively. Third quarter, 2 interceptions by Patrick Mahomes. And what do? Their composure.
Yes.
It is the thing that you don't expect to see from a team this young, being led by a player young. However, they still did it. Credit to Andy Reid, credit to all the coaches, credit to the players, the captains on that team, Tyrann Mathieu, Frank Clark, Patrick Mahomes. These guys were capable of settling everybody down. Look, it's okay. We do what we do. We play our game. We're going to get things. We did it in 3 straight games in the playoffs, and by and large, is the most remarkable thing I've seen about this team in the postseason.
Steve Willis from the WD60 Sports Report joining me here, talking all things Super Bowl 54, and a sentence he has longed to hear in the immortal words of one Joe Buck: the Kansas City Chiefs are the world champions for the first time since 1969. This is not going to set in until we start talking football next year. Hell, so we start talking off season, all that stuff. But you know something? Your team did it. My team got there. I will venture to say, and I'll put this out on a limb, we'll see y'all in Tampa next February.
You know, I would not be the least surprised. And the one thing I think that should scare the rest of the league is the 49ers don't have a lot of contracts to work on in the offseason, so they're going to bring a lot of people. And the Kansas City Chiefs, even though they have a big contract to sign Patrick Mahomes, we've already heard from Sammy Watkins, he'll take less money to stay a Chief.
Yep.
We've already heard Tyrann Mathieu, Frank Clark, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Damian Adams all say in public, we want to retire Kansas City.
Yep.
That should scare the life out of just about anybody in the AFC. Oh, my God, that core group wants to stay there. Travis Kelce, too.
Yeah. Don't forget Travis Kelce. Don't forget Travis Kelce. I love Travis Kelce.
You can't forget Zeus, man. That guy is just remarkable.
Listen, you got Zeus, we got Kittle. The 2 best tight ends met last Sunday night, I beg your pardon, in the Super Bowl. And you know something? I'll say it again. We'll see y'all in Tampa. I know I'm putting it out there, and I shouldn't be putting it out there, but with this young team and that young team they have in Kansas City, we'll see y'all in Tampa. Let's do it again.
Great chance of that happening. Absolutely great.
Steve Willis of the WD60 Sports Report joining me here on the program. Thanks a lot, my friend. Appreciate the time, and I'll say it one more time. See y'all next February in Tampa.
All right, I greatly appreciate it, man. Make sure if you don't mind, a little shameless plug here.
Go ahead. Go for it.
Find me on Twitter. My handle is the Willis76. Find me on Twitter, and of course you can check out the show everywhere that podcasts are available: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, you name it, we're on there. WD60, just search WD60. You can ask Alexa to play it and on Spotify, and she'll find it for you. Just anywhere you want to listen.
It's a fabulous podcast, folks. I recommend it. I truly recommend it. Thank you, partner. Appreciate the time. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot, buddy. See ya.
Man, the Kansas City Chiefs are the world champions. No denying that. And I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers and Chiefs met down in Tampa to do it all again. We got more in a flash. There is something wrong and rotten at Michigan State University. I was flipping through the news yesterday, and a note came across my Messenger and my Facebook while I was in my laboratory lining up some interviews, that Mike Dantonio has retired as the head football coach at Michigan State University. And a friend of mine sent this to me. I said, what? Wait a minute. Mike Dantonio did what? Well, I went back into the lab and started researching. And I find this article courtesy of CBSSports.com. I beg your pardon. And it reads as follows. Michigan State coach Mark Dantonio has stepped down from his position as the longtime coach of the Spartans program. Dantonio made the surprising announcement on Tuesday afternoon, less than 24 hours before National Signing Day takes over the college football world, and just 2 weeks after receiving a longevity bonus from the university. Defensive coordinator and linebackers coach Mike Tressel will serve as the team's interim coach. I read that, and one of my favorite radio shows that I love to listen to is the Valenti Show out of Detroit. Mike Valenti is a longtime radio host. He was part of Valenti and Foster before Terry Foster retired, and he has been doing a fabulous job as the host of that show, and he's a graduate of Michigan State University. A little side note, one of the things I love about Valenti is when he gets mad, his New York accent comes out, because he's originally from New York. I digress. I listened to him, and I started reading. I haven't had a chance to keep up with college football, since professional football took over and all this other stuff, and like I said earlier in the program with the move and everything. But then I started doing some digging, and I kept this article up. I started doing some digging, and a lawsuit came to my attention. Dantonio is the subject of a lawsuit filed against Michigan State University by former staffer Curtis Blackwell. Curtis Blackwell is seeking more than $5 million in damages for wrongful termination. In the complaint, Blackwell alleges that Dantonio, who has spent the last 13 years at Michigan State, committed multiple NCAA recruiting violations. Among those allegations are that Dantonio orchestrated employment for the parents of 2 Michigan State football players with the school's mega donor, Bob, Scandalaris. Additionally, the suit claims that Blackwell accompanied Dantonio on an in-home visit for a 5-star recruit when Blackwell wasn't authorized to conduct an off-campus visit. Dantonio is serving as a witness in the case and refuted those allegations in a January 10th deposition. Lawyers for Dantonio have called the allegations not only false, but totally gratuitous. As I continue to read from CBSSports.com, Dantonio was asked if the lawsuit played a part in his decision during a press conference on Tuesday night. Dantonio's answer, quote, 0. No relevance whatsoever, close quote. Now I'm going to read to you his letter that he tweeted Tuesday afternoon. Reads as follows. There have been so many amazing life moments in the last 13 years. When I reflect, I think of our Big Ten championship games, our Big Ten championships, the big games, the playoffs, the bowl wins, the moments, the milestones, the graduates, the NFL opportunities, and finally, perhaps most importantly, the relationships made. This job has been a 24/7, 365-day-a-year position. There is no downtime, and it is filled with the demands and challenges of managing games, players, coaches, recruits, donors, staff, media, and enthusiastic fan base and competition at the very highest level. I will miss it all, but I feel the sacrifices that I've made away from my family now must become my priority at this time in my life. My plan is to stay on within the university and athletic department in a role involving special projects, especially transitioning our players, both current and incoming, to their next challenges. Something is foul. Dantonio just recently received a longevity bonus of $4.3 million from the university on January 16th, which came following the conclusion of his 13th season in East Lansing, Michigan. Just mentioned all the bowl appearances, 3 Big Ten championships, a college football playoff appearance, and a school-best 114 wins. They went 8-5 against rival Michigan, including a stretch of 7 wins over 8 games from 2008 to 2015. You know what? When I listened to Mike Valenti yesterday, and I really sat down and started thinking about it, a couple of thoughts have come to mind, and I did some more research on the lawsuit where Dantonio is serving as a witness. I have come to the conclusion, and I can be totally wrong, I have come to the conclusion that Dantonio did something messed up. Very, very messed up. And I love the analogy that Valenti put forth in his program yesterday. He broke the story when the news came down. I got this later. But I love the analogy that Mike Valenti put together, and this is the analogy I'm going to use, courtesy of that show, and this is what I'm thinking. Behind door number 1, there's a family issue. And he mentioned his family in his he mentioned his family in that letter that he read on Twitter. Okay? Behind door number 2, something really ran afoul under his watch, and he's been caught. And behind door number 3, he just quit. Which door do you all choose? I don't even have to say choose wisely. You know, and Valenti put a very good question out there. Where's door number 4 when you win the new car? There isn't a door number 4. Play it out. Behind door number 1, something wrong with his family or himself, health and family. Behind door number 2, the allegations are true. Behind door number 3, he just quit. He just said, in Valenti's words, F this, I quit. Something has run afoul at Michigan State University. Something has run really, really afoul in that football program. With this lawsuit coming down from Curtis Blackwell, who said, and alleged, let me allege, I'll use that word, allege, and I'll read it again. In the complaint, Blackwell alleged that Dantonio, who has spent the last 13 years at Michigan State, committed multiple NCAA recruiting violations. There's your answer. I really don't know which door it is, but if it's the last 2, then again, I'll borrow from Valenti, and I'm putting my own thoughts. I was putting my own thoughts together. This is a panic move. This is a move where he is trying to cover his own ass and not look as guilty or guiltless in the deposition that was given, or in the charges that I believe are forthcoming. I am inclined to believe, because of this, I would love to be wrong and have it be something with his health and family. But you resign a month after receiving $4.3 million. You resign 24 hours before National Signing Day. Yeah, the press conference was held later, but why did you take to Twitter to make this announcement? Why did you not do it the normal way and schedule a press conference. And again, the press conference came later, but you're going to take to Twitter to do this? I understand Valenti's frustration. Yeah, I'm a Northwestern fan, but I'm also a fan of good college football programs. You know, I didn't think much of Dantonio, to be honest, and I don't mean that in a bad way. He kept Michigan State competitive for many years. But now you begin to ask yourself, at the sacrifice of what? At what cost did you keep Michigan State competitive? At what cost did you keep that football program relevant? And it's very interesting, and again I echo Valenti's thoughts as they have now become my own, at least for this. It's very interesting that he resigns abruptly after receiving $4.3 million as that longevity bonus kicked in. You would tend to think after that bonus kicked in, it would be business as usual. Go on the recruiting trail, follow the rules, bring in some recruits, try to bounce back from a 7-6 year. The handwriting was on the wall for Dantonio a long time ago. A long time ago. Two of the losses that he suffered in his tenure, in recent times, recent bias admitted, came at the hands of my Northwestern Wildcats. One in East Lansing, one here, one in Evanston. Here, I still think I'm in Chicago. I'm sorry. There is something stupid going on with the Michigan State football program. And I am very inclined to think that Mike Dantonio and those allegations of recruiting violations are going to become truth. And he said, the hell with y'all, I'm getting out of here before the walls come tumbling down. Part of the wall already came tumbling down. The rest of it, I believe, is going to come tumbling down very soon. And this season is going to be the penalty that is paid by the Michigan State football program for Mike Dantonio's past transgressions and anyone's after this that will be named. That's Snowman's take. What's yours? Now that I got that off my chest, let me pause for a break. I'll come back with more after this. All right, folks, we continue on with the program, and I want to welcome back to the show a young man I had on a long time ago. Too damn long. He has been tearing it up in the podcast ranks, and I mean that with all the love in the world. I want y'all to listen for this name as he continues to climb the podcast ranks, the radio show ranks, and I tell you what, I'm so happy to have him back on my show to talk a little hoops with me. He is the host of The Real Deal with Damian Adams, and Damian Adams has joined me. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. Like you said, it's been way too long, but I'm super happy to be back on the show with you.
Oh man, I am excited to have you with me. So let's talk. Let's talk NBA because it's one of our specialties, and you and I we're playful with each other on the internet when we go back and forth on social media. But first of all, let me get your thoughts on one Kobe Bean Bryant.
Man, just such a tragedy. You know, when you think about the fact that we lost 9 people way too soon. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the thoughts go through your mind of, you know, should they have ever gotten on a helicopter? When you hear about how foggy it was. You know, should they have, you know, we knew that it was a way of life for Kobe to take a helicopter because it just made things easier for him.
Yeah. When
it comes to traffic and just being able to move around with somebody who's that famous, not, you know, being on the streets with everybody and things like that. So we get it that was something he did normally like we do with our cars every day.
Mm-hmm.
But you just wonder if that's the day they should have changed up the routine because of the weather, and could they have changed things? But, you know, you can't go back. And so now you just have to take time to not only remember Kobe, but remember Gigi and remember all the victims on this, on that flight. With Kobe, when you think about Kobe, he definitely made a great impact on the world.
Yes,
and if there's one silver lining to this tragedy, it's the fact that you see how many people he affected in such a major way.
And LeBron's speech this past Friday night, I'm sorry to interrupt you. The LeBron speech this past Friday night had me crying, okay? Especially when he spoke from the heart. I absolutely adored that.
Yeah, definitely. It was the tribute as a whole just was so touching. And it was understandable afterwards how it was kind of a weird feeling because you're watching the game and in the arena you could hear a silence.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was some cheering here, some cheering there, but it was an eerie silence. Like people didn't know how to react.
Yeah.
They didn't know, is it okay to move on now? And the thing is, it's okay to move on. You know that you never forget. We're going to have moments where things are going to remind us of Kobe. There's going to be moments where someone does something special where only, Kobe and Michael or LeBron did it. And we're going to remember Kobe again. So we're never going to forget Kobe Bryant. We're never going to forget Gigi. We're not going to forget those other victims on that flight. And that's what the main thing is, to make sure that we keep them in our hearts. And for Kobe, man, when you think of Kobe, for me, I just think of the Mamba mentality. I think of someone who, as he put it, was a talented overachiever. He had the God-given gifts of being 6'6", 6'7", with, great athleticism, but worked as if he was someone like a Matthew Dellavedova. He had that type of work ethic if he was somebody who was, scratching and gnawing to stay in the league. So that's how I remember Kobe, as someone who had the talent of, a Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter and all those guys who worked as if he was the 12th man on the roster.
Yeah, and you'd see it in all of the legends. You see it in all of the guys that shaped this league and made this league what it is now. The international stars, the national stars, all coming together, all offering their thoughts and their prayers for the Bryant family, for the other families, including the Altobelli family that lost their life on that helicopter. And I've said many times on this program, and I know you've heard it, it not only hurts me as a fan, but it particularly hurts me as a parent.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. I don't have kids yet, but the first thing, like when it happened, the first person who contacted me was my dad, right? And he, just wanted to say, I love you, because you never know when those moments will be lost to be able to say, I love you to the next person. We've all lost somebody close to us in not such a horrific way as this, but we've all experienced some type of loss. And this just puts into perspective how life is the longest thing you'll do, but it's also something that can end very quickly. So we just have to take every moment and cherish it.
Yeah. Yeah, I say I love you to my wife and my children all the time. The story of my baby girl, Donna. I lost her when she was 2. 2015, I lost my dad in 2007. So, from both ways, it affected me as a fan, as a parent, and as a son. And as you said best, my friend, you have to live your life to the fullest. That's what Kobe did. That's what I'm trying to do. I know that's what you're trying to do, and a fabulous show in the process of doing it. Let's talk some NBA, man. They made some changes to the All-Star game in terms of the scoring, and I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at the changes, but I have. And considering it's in my hometown of Chicago, the All-Star game is, and I know they're doing this to honor Kobe. And rightfully so. But I got to be honest with you, man. I took a look at the rules and I went, what the hell are these?
Yeah, I got a chance to look at the rules. I posted it in the group, The Real Deal with Damian Adams group.
Yes.
From the 3-point conversion. They posted the rules, and I shared it from their page. And Yeah, I had the same reaction you did. I was looking over and I was trying to understand exactly what they were trying to do.
You and I have talked sports a long time. You know that look on my face. I saw the rule and I looked at that link that you posted. And folks, check out the 3-point conversion as well. Another fabulous group of sports journalists. What the hell are these rules, man? What the hell are they trying to do?
The only thing I can say that they're trying to do is maybe this is their way of trying to amp up the competition through all 4 quarters.
Yeah.
Because we know normally with the All-Star game, what you get is you'll get the first 2 quarters and a half where they're just kind of jogging back and forth. You'll get some alley-oops. You'll get some long-distance threes. And then the competition doesn't really go up until the 4th quarter if it's close. And that's when you'll start to get real competition.
And that's a big if. It hasn't been close for a while, but that's a big if.
So with these rules, what they're trying to say is, okay, we're going to have each quarter count as a win or a loss, and maybe that will wrap up the competition. But to me, if you want to honor Kobe, it's up to the players.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can do all the things from the outside perspective, like them wearing 24 and wearing 2 to honor Kobe and Gigi. That's awesome. But if they want to honor Kobe as far as the play on the court itself, they have to just go out and leave it all on the floor. There's a reason Kobe had 4 All-Star MVPs is because he went out there and really played. So those guys, like, there's certain players who do play, like Giannis. Like, some people say Giannis plays too hard in the All-Star game. That's something that Kobe would love. So you have him, LeBron plays hard. Those guys are going to bring it, and I think that's the normal way you should honor them.
Kobe, MJ, LeBron, Julius Erving back in the day for me when I got started watching, Magic Johnson. You want to honor Kobe? Play that way.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. Like, if they just went out there and said, okay, we're going to play for real, that's the thing. You're still going to get the highlights because of the best players in the world. So you're going to have moments where you get a steal, you get a fast break, and you'll still get to have those moments where you throw the ball at the backboard and some crazy athlete used to come and tear it down. You'll still have those highlights.
Yep.
And it'll be even better if we know that came off of a real play.
Yeah, if it came within the flow of the offense, if it came, like you said, off of a real play. Let me ask you this, and I've talked so many times on this program about ratings being down for the NBA, and my theory is this, and I'm not throwing shade at anybody, but I want you to think about this, and I want your thoughts. Does the NBA and its ratings miss the Splash Brothers?
They definitely miss the Splash Brothers. They miss Steph, Clay. You miss Zion for a huge portion of the year. So those injuries in themselves really cost, right?
Yeah.
Then LeBron being on the West Coast hurts you because his games come on late in the East Coast, where people are asleep already. You combine the fact that the Warriors, who have been your biggest draw for the past 5 years, are no longer a draw at all. LeBron being on the West Coast. The rookie phenom who was supposed to, have New Orleans on the map was missing for most of the first half of the season. That's really going to hurt your ratings, right? So now that Zion's back, Steph will be back. They say maybe 6 weeks to be reevaluated, but the Warriors, I think, they're pretty much lost for this year. So when you have Zion coming back and the playoffs starting, where you have games coming on every night and a little earlier, I think that's when you'll start to see those ratings get back up.
Yeah.
And plus, football season officially ended yesterday. I think the NBA will be okay.
Yeah, I think so too. It was just so many factors that came in at the top of the season. Talking with Damian Adams of The Real Deal with Damian Adams on all things NBA. Man, it's so much to unpack right now. I haven't had you on in a long time. I had one of our mutual friends on, Courtney Harden, a few years ago to talk all things NBA All-Star Game, and we bust out the old school All-Star Game talk and how it was competitive. And I was on his show recently, and we talked the same thing. Is the NBA missing that competitiveness now than it was back in the 80s and the 90s?
I wouldn't say it's missing it per regular season games and postseason games. The All-Star game, definitely. Like, you're not going to see that competitiveness, but I do think that the players themselves are just as competitive as they were back then.
Yeah.
The game has changed.
True.
So now that competitiveness just comes out in a different way. So in the 90s, when people were competitive and you saw people get frustrated with Jordan, that's when you saw Bill Laimbeer come and hit Jordan. Those things aren't going to happen now.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when you saw the rise of the bad boys, and on top of that, that's when you saw the Bulls answer them.
Exactly. Yeah. So, like, it was a different way to, channel your competitiveness back then than it is now. But now you have it to where it's so much more free flowing. I believe the game today is more attractive than it was then.
Yeah.
When you think about the way that the game is so spread out and how you get so many great plays and you get to see these athletes on offense do what they do. And defensively, I believe it's harder to play today than it was back then because you're not allowed to touch up the players like you were back then. There's no hand checking. People forget about hand checking. Like that, it makes your job so much easier when you can just have your hand on the player, holding them pretty much as they're trying to make their move as you guard them.
No hand checking.
Now you have to move your feet.
No
you
arm
have to
bars.
move your feet.
No arm bars. You can't do that either.
Exactly. That's gone.
Don't get me started on screens. Don't get me started on fundamental screens, man.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing. That's one of the things that I used to hate watching the Warriors as they're going through their success. You see Draymond Green get away with illegal screens all day. But it's something.
Draymond Green in modern times was Bill Laimbeer and James Edwards back in the 80s and 90s, all right, for the bad boy Pistons. Let's just be
That's
real.
One thing I'll say about Draymond. Draymond's one of those players that was built for back then. Like, if he was playing back then, he'll fit right in.
Absolutely.
So it's something that, like, the style has changed, but I think the competitiveness of the players is still there. They're just smarter about the way they go about it. I'm not a big fan of the load management, but I get it. When you have a player who may have a sore knee or tendonitis, like a Kawhi Leonard, you may be smarter to manage it, but some players are just built different. Like LeBron could play in any era, right? Yes. Because the way he's built, he could, plow through anybody. He could plow through the 80s, because he's built for that. So I think we should appreciate the 80s and 90s for what it was, and we still could appreciate today for the wide open spread game that we have and the entertainment we get today.
I'll give you a couple of dream matchups I would love to have seen across eras. Start with the guard position. Wouldn't you love to see a couple of games when AI would go up against Stephen Curry?
It'd be amazing. Neither one of them could stop each other. But it'd be amazing to watch. It would be
so amazing. Yeah. The dribbling sensation of AI, the dribbling of Stephen Curry, clear the floor and let them go at it, man.
Yeah, exactly. And we only got a taste of it. We got very young Steph against older AI. So we didn't get to see them in their prime against each other. I wish we could have got to see that because you think about AI and him being so dominant in the mid-range and being able to drive to the goal at his size, being maybe the best pound-for-pound player of all time. Then with Steph, no matter what era you play in, you can't stop a guy who's shooting from 6 feet behind the line. Like, it doesn't matter what era you're in, how rough you try to be. If he's pulling up from 6 feet behind the line, it doesn't matter. So I don't think either they couldn't stop each other.
I mean, how many times I get the Warriors Network, they're on KNBR or 95.7 The Game, I beg your pardon. How many times have we heard Tim Roy or Bob Fitzgerald on NBC Sports Bay Area go, he's shooting from the logo? And you're thinking, what?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Steph, Dame has become logo Lillard.
Oh, man. So Damian has really grown. I love watching Damian Lillard play. Love watching him play.
Yeah, no, he's amazing.
I mean,
he's amazing.
We got Damian and Steph last year in the West Finals. I just wish it had gone longer than 4 games. But when you're playing the two-time Warriors, and they weren't even at full strength, so that tells you, A, how far Portland has advanced, and B, how tough the Warriors were. I'll give you a dream matchup. How about an ultimate three-point contest? Let's do this. An ultimate three-point contest. You got to have Ray Allen. You got to have Steph. You got to have Clay. You got to throw Larry Bird in the picture.
Definitely.
You got to throw Reggie Miller in the picture.
Yep.
Right?
No, you definitely got to have those 5.
Mm-hmm.
If you throw in a 6th for ultimate 3-point contest,
who would be
think about
that?
like there's so many great shooters.
Yeah, there is. There is. Who would be that?
So many great.
Who would be that 6th
I'm thinking
person?
Glenn Wright.
Yeah, that's 6. We gotta have 8.
Yeah,
we gotta have 8. We got Steph. We got Steph. We got Clay, Bird, Reggie Miller, Glenn Rice, Ray Allen.
Yeah.
We got 6, and you gotta have 7. We gotta have 7 and 8. We gotta have 7 and 8 because back in the day you had 8 competitors.
Yeah, no, definitely. So if you're gonna go old school with 8 competitors for Craig Hodges.
Yes, thank you, Craig Hodges. And you know what?
Yes, because he was amazing.
I know who the 8th person is. Steve Kerr.
Yeah, now Steve Kerr is definitely. I think he still holds the record for his most accurate 3-point shooter of all time.
Yeah,
so gotta have him in there as well.
Gotta have Steve Kerr. Now, how about the ultimate slam dunk contest?
Well, you gotta have Vince Carter.
You gotta have Vinsanity. Gotta have MJ.
Yeah. Gotta have MJ. Kobe. Dominique
Wilkins. Kobe gets a vote.
Yeah, I'll throw Kobe in there as well.
Kobe gets a vote.
I would go a little new school and take Zach LaVine.
Yeah,
like Zach LaVine's nasty.
Zach LaVine.
Yeah.
You want to stay new school? Here's another new schooler I'd add. You'd have to be a few years back. Andre Iguodala.
Andre Iguodala was nasty. He was good in the contest. He was pretty good. He's somebody who gets forgotten about because of Nate Robinson. But
right.
Andre Iguodala was nasty. Yeah, he was nasty in the contest.
Yep.
Someone else who was nasty. He's not so new school anymore. He retired a few years ago. But Jason Richardson.
Mm-hmm. Jason Richardson.
Very good in the dunk contest.
Julius Erving.
Yeah, his battles with Desmond Nixon was great.
Julius Erving.
You gotta have Dr. J. He's
gotta have Dr. J.
Yeah.
And the one who won it in '84 to start the new trend, Larry Nance. He was the first to have a 2-ball dunk. You gotta have Larry Nance in there.
Yeah. Now Larry Nance definitely his athleticism at that size was just crazy. For him to be doing those things,
man.
And at that time too, that was crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy. But like I said, we got to have Dr. J in there because he dunked from the foul line in 1976, and then Jordan did it in '85 in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the 2-ball competition involving the best pairs, and you know where I'm going to start. You know where I'm going to start first. I got to go to my hometown and get MJ and Scotty to start with.
Yeah.
Gotta have
MJ, Scotty.
Gotta have MJ and Scotty.
Yeah. Definitely. Shaq and Kobe.
Gotta
have. One that doesn't have any championships but definitely should be up there is Gary Payton and Sean Kemp.
Yeah. Oh, I got a pair for you.
That alley-oop combo was great.
Yes. I got a pair for you. KJ and Charles Barkley. There's a pair.
Kevin Johnson might be the most underrated player of all time.
Thank you.
He was amazing.
We've spoken about KJ. And I posted online that KJ is one of the most underrated point guards to ever play, which gives me this.
Definitely.
If we expand our ultimate 3-point competition to 10 players, I got number 9 for you right now, and that's Mark Price from back in the day with the Cleveland Cavaliers. How about that?
Yeah. Mark Price was great, man. He's somebody who a lot of people sleep on him, but when you see people split up pick and roll today, like that started with Mark Price with him splitting pick and roll.
That started with Mark Price. It absolutely started with Mark Price. So you got MJ, MJ and Scotty, Shaq and Kobe.
Yeah, Gary and Sean
Kemp. KJ and
Charles. Have
Stockton Malone. Gotta have Stockton Malone.
Yeah, because that's the greatest duo to not win. Like you have to give them that.
Yeah.
Because you think about one is second all time in points, the other one is first all time in steals and assists.
Yep. Which leads to this Magic with anybody. James Worthy, Kareem, Byron Scott.
Yeah. That's the thing. You could pick the Lakers team, that team. You could pick a bunch of different duos.
You can pick anybody for that team.
You just put Magic there, and you could just put anybody else there. Like those Showtime Lakers are amazing. Like Magic Kareem, you definitely have to put up there though, as far as duos. This one's for my wife. How about a couple of Indiana Pacers, Mark Jackson and Reggie Miller? That's a good duo. That's really good. You got to put I think an underrated one for the 2000 finals was Jalen Rose and Reggie Miller. Yeah, those guys, because they were one of the few duos ever to both score 40 points in the game. Yep. People sleep on Jalen Rose and they think of him just as the analyst or the one who got dropped 81 on by Kobe, but he had a pretty good career. People sleep on that. He did. He absolutely did. He absolutely did. Here you go. Speaking of Knicks, Charles Oakley and Patrick Ewing. Yeah, definitely. That's probably the most physical duo that's going to be there. Definitely. Or here's a physical duo: Larry Bird and Kevin McHale. Since we're talking about duos. Yeah, that's a nasty one. You got the inside out game. Yep. You got the man of 1,000 post move. Kevin McHale. When you speak of underrated players, Kevin McHale has to be up there as well. Yes. Just because of time, people have forgotten how good he was, and plus he was under the shadow of Larry Bird and Robert Parrish. Like, he's one of those guys, like, he could just go in the post and do work. He wasn't the most athletic. You want underrated? But he just does work. I posted this, and you agreed with this name. Speaking of underrated, James Worthy. Yeah, he gets lost because of Magic and Kareem. He's somebody who was definitely an awesome player in his day. So you definitely have to give him respect in that way. Absolutely. You got to have. How about Tim Duncan and David Robinson? There's a pair. Yeah, that definitely was that's a great duo. If you got Tim Duncan, you also have to put Tim Duncan, Tony Parker in there. Pick and roll with Parker and Duncan, or Duncan and Parker, as was the case many times. Let's stay in Texas. Akeem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, that team definitely should have won some championships when he was younger. Of course, Akeem got his too when he got older, but when he was with Ralph Sampson, they definitely should have got one. How about a current duo, or a duo that I wish was current? Luka Doncic and Dirk Nowitzki. Speaking of Mavericks. Oh man, yeah. We could somehow put Dirk in the time machine. That would be awesome. Yep. I think Dirk and not Dirk, but I think Luka and Porzingis will be a great duo soon. Yes. I think those two will work together and become great. We got Stephen Clay. Got to put Stephen Clay in there. Got to have the Splash Brothers. Yeah, you have to put those two in there. You just have to wonder what records they would set. How about let me go back to my hometown. Derrick Rose and Luol Deng, and how good they were. That's a good one. Yeah, if Derrick Rose could have stayed healthy longer, I know that team could have been. That team definitely could have won championship with the defense they had. Running the offense with Derrick Rose. And I said the only thing that stopped the Bulls in the Thibodeau era from winning titles was injuries, because they were beat up by the time 2013 got here. And I hated that. I hated that they were that worn out and they were that beat up. So we got to throw them in there. Rose and Luol Deng, Kobe and Pau Gasol. Yeah, that's a good duo. There's a combination. That's a good duo. People forget how good Pau Gasol was in his prime. He's arguably a top 10 power forward all time. And, people, because Kobe was so great, people sleep on that. But Pau Gasol, in his prime, man, he was really good. Oh, how about this duo? Mike Bibby and Chris Webber. That's a good one. That's a team that probably should have won a championship. 2002, that 2002 Sacramento Kings team is up there. When you talk about the greatest teams to not win, the 2002 Sacramento Kings team is definitely right there. Yeah. One of the most epic Western Conference Finals we've ever seen. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Damian Lillard. You got to put LeBron and Kobe. You got to have LeBron and Kobe. I mean, not LeBron and Kobe, but LeBron and Dwayne Wade. I meant. There you go. You got to put LeBron and Dwayne Wade. LeBron and Flash. I just spoke their names. Talking about Damian and Lillard. Thank you. Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum. Or if you want to go back in the day for the Portland Trail Blazers, Clyde Drexler and Terry Porter. That's a very good one. That's one that probably gets forgotten in history. That's a very good one. It's a forgotten duo. The Portland Trail Blazers in 1990, they were a forgotten West champion.
because everybody had their eyes on Phoenix after they upset the Lakers and took them out of the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. No, that Portland team should have got one. They should have got a championship in there.
They should have got one. They should have got. Here you go, Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. If you want to stay modern,
that's a duo that's pretty good for the years to come. you think about Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's what, 23, 24, and Gobert's like 27.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you got a team. That's a pretty good duo for years to come.
Yeah, it is. It is. Damian Adams of The Real Deal with Damian Adams. Tell everybody where they can find you, my friend.
Oh, man, thank you again for having me on the show. I really do appreciate it. You can find me everywhere on social media at The Real Deal WDA. So that's The Real Deal, W as in whiskey, D as in Delta, A as in Alpha. The show, The Real Deal with Damian Adams, is available wherever you listen to podcasts. So if you listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Castbox, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find The Real Deal with Damian Adams. It's real sports talk for the real sports fan. So I know if you listen to this show, you're a real sports fan, and you will enjoy my show as well.
I truly appreciate those words, my man. Please subscribe to The Real Deal with Damian Adams. I'm a subscriber. I recommend his podcast. I recommend his show. He just recommended mine. Man, thank you so much for coming on. I got to have you on again more often. We got to do this again.
Definitely. I got to have you on my show as well. We got to make this connection happen more often. Thank you again, sir.
You got it, my friend. Thank you very much. That'll put a nice little bow on this edition of the Daily BS. I want to thank you for tuning in, and tune in tomorrow when we bring you another edition of the Daily BS, which is in turn the best of Snowman in the Morning. And you can catch both programs courtesy of Snowman Digital Media. Till tomorrow, God bless you. I'm out of here.